Welcome back. So Demetra is appropriately dressed because we're talking about some cults and some weird stuff going on. And she's wearing a hoodie. If anyone's
That was not done on purpose. It's because it's freezing in my house, and I refuse to put on the heat because it's June.
Okay, you're good. You're good. But she looks a little nefarious. So, yes, this is our cult episode, but I gotta start with something because I've been waiting for a while to talk to Demetra about this because I wanted Demetra to hear about this while we're recording.
Okay.
So are you familiar with The Onion? Do you know what that is?
No. What do you mean?
I think it might be just a Chicago thing. I'm not sure, but The Onion, like when I was,
Is
like
this cult related, or are we talking about food?
Is a newspaper. It's not really cult related.
Okay. Cool.
The Onion was a print. So like 20 years ago when I didn't have a car and I lived in the city, this is like a free newspaper. It would be at all the train stops, blah, blah, blah. So everyone would grab that, kind of like the Red Eye in Chicago as well.
Yeah. I used to grab that one all the time.
So now, of course, you do all this online, but The Onion was one that was a satire. Like, it was funny. Mm-hmm. Every single article it's fake. It's fake news, and it's just hilarious. It's like kind of sarcastic, and anyway, it is hilarious. When I've read some things lately, I'm like, is this from The Onion? Like, the world is getting so weird.
You're like, is this fake? This no way it could be real.
Like, this is meant to be an article to make me laugh, right? It's not real. Okay, there's a new STD out. Our friend sent us this the other day. TM7. It's a new STD, or I guess STI is maybe more accurate. Infection. It's like, looks like ringworm. Circular red patches in your groin area or your booty hole. It's a fungal infection, and I think it itches and burns. And there's one case in the U.S. As of right now.
Right.
And
I believe it was published on June 5th, or journaled.
June 5th. So like
June
a couple
5th.
days ago.
Yeah, 5 days ago now. Yeah.
2024. And there's one case in New York City. And it's similar to jock itch or athlete's foot on your coot. But I'm like, how are they still finding new ones?
Yeah, right.
I will say this person seems to have really gotten around, this NYC person who has it. Sex workers in Southeast Asia. Anyway.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, if you're nervous about going to the bar over the weekend, you're probably okay.
Right.
But that made me think of, somebody told me this, and I really thought they were misinformed. A client told me. And I was like, oh, wow, interesting. And then I was like, when they left, I was like Googling that shit.
Yeah.
Okay, in the Midwest right now, everybody's talking about cicadas because it's like we only have like one set of cicadas. So there's 13-year and 17-year cicadas that are like a big ordeal. And in 2024, the two are overlapping. So I think more south of us, they have the 13-year and the 17-year emerging at the same time. So it's quite a topic of conversation. They don't do anything bad to us, I don't think. It's just they're really kind of gross, and there's so many, and they get loud, and they die and leave like a husk. So like animals and dogs will eat them. It's just nasty. Okay, so cicadas have an STD. So these cicadas,
what?
An STD that turns cicadas into zombies and causes their genitals to fall off. It is happening.
So, zombies. So I thought zombies was
sci-fi.
Fake. Yeah, sci-fi, fake.
Well, I think it's just in the same vein of like not being rational.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Because I don't know that cicadas
zombie state. I understand. Right.
Yes. Because there aren't any cicadas that are in academia. They're not that smart to begin with. Okay, and so it's called Massospora cicadina, and it's a fungal infection as well. We got some fungus happening, people. fungal infection.
And it's not related. Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. Only 13 and 17-year cicadas are getting them. There have been cases in Illinois already. Birds that eat infected cicadas will experience hallucinations. So more birds are dying because they're losing their minds and flying into windows and stuff all the time.
Oh, poor things.
I know. So I
all
wanted
because these stupid cicadas want to get their groove on.
Girl.
And spread some shit.
Okay, and I looked at several news sources. This is all over. And I would not be reading this on a podcast if I wasn't sure of the validity, but this is everywhere. Okay, so the white fungus takes over male cicadas and causes the gonads to be torn from the body. The chalky spores that are released by the fungus are spread to other nearby cicadas, infecting more and more. The fungus also takes over the way cicadas behave. Even though their reproductive parts have been replaced by a fungus, they are driven to mate with as many other cicadas as possible. Infected males also flick their wings in an attractive way, luring in more victims.
They're serial STD spreaders.
Yes! They're like those weirdos in the 80s and 90s that were like trying to infect as many people as possible.
Right?
It turns infected cicadas, this says, into zombie insects that disperse more fungus by causing males infected with stage 1 of emergence to produce wing flick signals as if they were females, making them highly attractive to cicadas of both sexes. So we got some freaky deaky pansexual insects. This is still the news article. By fervently mating with healthy cicadas, the sickened insects spread the fungus far and wide. And with trillions, potentially even hundreds of trillions of cicadas emerging this year, the fungus has a lot of insects to prey on. So have you seen Last of Us? So it's
What's that one about?
It was based on it was a video game, and they made an HBO show out of it. I want to say last year. But it's a more modern take on zombie stuff. Okay. Because there's actual science behind it, and it has to do with like fungal spores being like infecting humans to the point where their brain is they're not their personality anymore.
Do you remember when we did that episode and we talked about if we got invaded by zombies that we would put a bunch of treadmills around our houses because they would never get to us?
Yeah.
I think you need to turn that bike in for a treadmill.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have a treadmill, so I'm going to come equipped.
Sex-crazed zombies.
Yeah, it's zombie. Yeah.
Zombie cicadas. Hey, I just remembered, I remember in school studying narcolepsy. Mm-hmm. And they played a video of narcoleptic dogs. Mm-hmm. It was actually hilarious. Like, you would see them, like, jumping through the grass, like, all happy, tongue out, and all of a sudden they would just, like, flop on their side.
What?
And then the camera would go up to him and, like, nudge him, like, hey, hey. And they would just, like, they fall asleep mid-jump.
Okay, I can't sleep even if I take a sleeping pill. Like, how does that even happen? How do you just fall asleep?
That's narcolepsy.
Okay, so that was our cicada
drama.
Yeah, briefing. We had a brief everybody who does not live in the Midwest about the cicadas and how they're spreading STDs, and our birds are becoming zombies because of it. Oh, and because of the STD, and the one source in New York, just be careful because this person clearly, and no judgment at all, but I guess had a lot of partners. And I believe this person, I don't know, might be one way or goes both ways. So just be careful.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about cults because I'm fascinated with them. A couple years ago, I watched that show on HBO called The Vow. It was about Nexium. And so that's
a Vow.
very,
It was good. Worth watching.
So good. So good. And then I watched other shows and then other shows, like slightly different topics, but the same sort of deal. Mm-hmm. And it is really, really interesting. So there's this guy named Stephen Hassan, who's a psychotherapist. He studies mostly mind control and cults, and he's been very vocal about deprogramming people, but doing it in a very ethical way, things like that. So he himself was in the Moonies in the 70s.
Yeah.
So he has a lot of experience firsthand as well. And the reason I bring him up is I think he's fascinating. And also he came up with a model of like how to define a cult, because the word cult is that there's not really like an agreed upon, this is the exact definition of it, you know? And people use it like, oh, our cult favorite lipstick, you know, or Peloton is a cult. Like, well, it kind of is, but it's on the low end of the spectrum, you know, because of this BITE model. So I think this is so interesting. The acronym BITE stands for Control of Behavior, Information, Thought, and Emotion. So any group that could be considered a cult would be, according to Stephen Hassan, on a kind of a sliding scale of, you know, the red flags are like if the leader of the cult wants everyone to die, for example. Or, you know, there's a lot of different, there's room in there for like MLMs being very culty, but multi-level marketing. And they might, you know, financially take advantage of people, potentially, but no one's going to come after you and try to kill you if you say you're going to leave. You know, things like that.
That's like the show that I just watched like a night or two ago. It's called Dancing with the Devil.
Yes. Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, so it's like the same thing. This guy, they were taking advantage of people basically financially and making a lot of money on them.
Yeah.
You know, and clearly he is a total narcissist, or his mindset was narcissistic in a way that he wanted them to be separated from their families.
Yeah.
And that's a really big narcissistic trait. So this pastor was clearly a narcissist, because even the sisters that were in, several sisters before, saying at some point they were separated.
Yeah.
Because they don't want you with your family.
Right.
Crazy.
So this model he came up with, I really think it's amazing, and it helped me to like see a lot of things differently. And again, it's like he also really tries to be kind of PC about it in order to not offend people, because you get like religions into this as well.
Yeah.
So he calls them high control groups.
Okay.
And I think that's a nice way to not be too harsh about it. But let's be real, they're trying to control you, you know? Also, I came across a quote the other day that I thought I'd never seen it put this way, saying religion is somebody telling you what is right and you're supposed to do it no matter what. And spirituality is doing what you know is right regardless of what someone tells you. So kind of that idea that like you need someone in between you and your higher power to tell you what's up, rather than you being able to do so yourself.
I love that you just said what you said and how you explained it, because I baptize and Christian Orthodox, right? But over the years, when I had my own choice, I tell people I'm spiritual. I'm not attached to any form of religion or anything. I'm a spiritual person. And I just love that you said that, because it's true. It's between me and my higher power. I don't need a third person telling me 10% of my check has to go to the church. And, you know, we have to remember, too, that people, the Bible and certain things like that, you know, a person wrote that. Don't forget.
Yeah.
Right? So rules and regulations were placed there for a reason.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Well, I'm going to start getting off subject here, and I don't want to. So go ahead.
Well, also with the like organized religion, how it is these days, I mean, a lot of people think of paganism and mythology as like absolutely ridiculous. You know, like the stories. Christianity is pretty ridiculous. At least half of my life, I believed a lot of it, literally, despite being someone who likes science and history. Anyhow.
Right. Because your natural instinct of who you are and were, or your natural what your mindset was telling you otherwise, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot to be said for that. Our minds are so strong, and so are our bodies. It would heal itself. It tells you when things are right or wrong. You know, that fight or flight. You know, so maybe like in your case, you're like me. I'm a science person. It's got to be black and white for me.
Yeah.
You know, it just makes sense. I'm not saying I'm a Scientologist, because I am not that either.
Oh, no.
No, I'm just saying behind science. I'm a person, like, I have to see it to believe it, or, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like, do you really, really want to go down saying 100% absolutely a virgin had a baby? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, right. And I don't want to upset people who are very religious, because I know a lot of people that I know, a lot of my clients and so forth are. And I'm not saying that your beliefs are not right, but I mean, there's no science behind it. I'm sorry. And then people will, you know, say, well, that's a miracle. That's the point of God, and that's a miracle. And I'm sorry. I don't think people rise from the dead.
But, you know, not to be disrespectful, but like,
No, not at all. No.
yeah, we're on the same page with that.
Right. I just find, like, and then also going back to, like, again, culty, I find a lot of religions, doesn't matter what religion it is, why is it that it always goes back to something bad? Like how I watched this Dancing with the Devil. This person was a friggin' pedophile, a rapist, and extorting money from these people, but yet you want to call yourself a man of God? So
yeah.
In my experience, and I know as much as there's as many good people, there's bad, and for as many bad, there's still good people and good priests and pastors out there. I understand that. But more often than not, you hear of these situations.
Yeah.
And why is it that they always turn culty? Why is it that they're always trying to control people? Why is it, you know, that poor woman, well, I'm not going to call her a poor woman, but remember that lady who killed her 5 children?
I do.
Horrible. Again, she had mental psychosis, okay? So she did have an issue. It was from postpartum. But prior to killing the children, she was involved with the church.
Yeah.
And the pastor's wife kept telling her, you're a bad mom. You're a bad mom. You're not doing things for your kids. I'm sorry, when you're telling someone that who has mental problems and trying to say, like, oh, it's God trying to change you, and then she turns around and kills her children. I don't know, man. I don't know if I believe in the higher power. That sounds like some... I don't know. Do you see where I'm trying to go with this? So why is it like these... And how people get so... How do you get brainwashed? If you're an everyday person like you and I, are you that desperate? Are you that... How do you...
No.
What happens?
I think Barbara? that is exactly the thing that people think of first, is that wouldn't happen to me.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I think it could happen to anybody.
Anyone, yeah.
I also read a lot about how, like, people who are kind of calling out organizations that were very culty and controlling after the fact, after they've left. And a common thing is, like, people who are highly intelligent, like, when someone's trying to manipulate them, they can often, like, you're creative enough to think of, like, how that could be true or real. For example, the virgin thing. I remember at a certain point in my life thinking, okay, well, clearly that can't happen. Maybe it was like a symbolic, or you know what I'm saying? You could kind of like...
You were trying to justify it.
Create a workaround, you know?
Yeah,
anyway.
Of course.
But then it gets really painful when, say, you really believe that, like, you know, God is on a different planet or in the sky, and he can make someone pregnant, you know, magically. And then... say you're a very devout religious person and you can't have babies, you think there's something wrong with you. Or like it's some huge travesty. Or you know what I'm saying? You can come up with so many. It gets dangerous.
Right.
And I wanted to say, I was reading that in the 1800s, a lot of religions were created in America. And...
Created. Key word here.
Created.
People, listen to Barbara very clearly here.
And this is so dangerous. Like, the whole freedom of religion thing has gotten way out of hand, and all sorts of cults are hiding under the religion banner. They don't pay taxes. They're untouchable as far as legally, and it's really messed up.
Right.
There really needs to be a better line in the sand drawn between, you can't just close the church doors and do whatever you want and we don't have any say, because people clearly...
It should be transparent then. If you're legit and you're not extorting people or money laundering or trafficking, all this should be open and available. So if you're going to get that tax break, if you're going to get the X, Y, and Z's from being this organization, right? Because it ruins it for the true, actual, symbolic, whether it be your church or your mosque or your wherever it is that you go to pray, whether it be in your home or your temple, right?
Yeah.
It ruins it for the ones that are legit, because you again, it's like with any organized crime.
Yeah.
Right?
Real quick though, like, it's almost the same as like when someone cries rape and they weren't raped. I'm sorry to even say that word out loud here, but it, like, not only is it not cool and so wrong, it is also spitting in the face of everyone who has been.
Yes.
And that's how I feel about these people coming up with fake religions, and
Yes.
it's making people not want to be a part of any of it because it's just so nasty.
That's kind of how my belief is. It's like, I want to believe, but then you see all these things and then there's like no proof of stuff. So I just finally stepped back, and like I said, for me, my own personal, I'm very spiritual. I pray to, my higher power, whatever that may be. I love to sage. I have my crystals and whatever.
Yeah, and I think it's important to be open-minded in the sense of, like, to me, prayer and meditation are the same thing.
Yes.
Or, like, whether it's your inner voice or someone speaking to you or someone believes that the Holy Spirit is telling them something, we're all talking about basically the same thing.
The same thing. That's what I'm trying to say. So also, besides the cult part, but the religion, that a lot of stuff is, which I personally do not talk about in my salon. If someone wants to sit in my chair and they want to rant about something, they're free to, but I don't talk religion. And that's partially part of it, because what is going on in the world and all the wars and how people are being murdered and killed because of something that is technically the same.
Yeah.
But yet people want to say it's different. And I know it is a lot more complicated than the surface stuff we're talking about here. But I'm just kind of touching base on it, like how it's just very sad to me, because people are being very, very hurt and ostracized for something that it shouldn't matter if I want to pray at home or go to a temple and pray. Or who cares?
Yeah.
If someone wants to have faith, let them have faith. If they don't want to have faith, then...
I wanted to show you, like, one illustration somebody told me about a long time ago that I thought was so cool. So this is the book I'm reading.
Combating Cult Mind Control.
Yeah, this is Dr. Actually, I'm not sure if he's a doctor. Stephen Hassan.
Okay, that's the one you were talking about earlier. Okay.
So I'm saying, like, say this is just for argument's sake. I'm holding up this book if you're just listening, and the cover has the title real big and his name real big, and it's blue. So you can say, oh, the book is blue. It has the white writing on it, blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, it's not. It has his picture on it, and there's a tag, and it says freedom of mind, and you're like, no. But look, there it is on the back.
Right.
And, like, can't they both be true? Like, you're looking at different sides of the same thing.
Different. Oh my God, that's such a great analogy.
Yeah.
Good job, Barbara.
Oh, why, thank you. I just want to read through these because I just find it so interesting. And you can stop me and we can talk about stuff, or I can just read them off, because I wanted to go through this bite model. And you can think of it as religion or anything, any group. Okay? You can think of it as even some corporations, like, working there is culty. But okay. So first of the bite model is behavior control. So he has a list of many aspects of this for each of the acronym letters, and basically the bottom line is, if you can check off something in every category, that it's technically a cult. And the more check marks you have overall, the more dangerous the cult. Kind of like what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, how many is there?
Oh, there's a lot. Let's see. In behavior control, there are 19 things.
Wow.
So I'm going to read these off.
Read them, please. Please do.
And so, like, as I say, Peloton for sure would be considered a cult. But also, it is...
I know, it sounds kind of funny, but I get it.
Yeah, so we're not trying to, like, you know, throw eggs at people here.
No,
but, like,
not at all.
You got to pay attention to any sort of group. Do you like what you're getting from it? I mean, also, the reason Peloton is so low on the scale is, like, because you would love to get really overly involved in something that makes your health better.
Yeah.
And they're
it's
honest.
Positives. There's positives about it. Come on, it's
and
healthy.
It's a business. And you pay for it. And if you don't want to pay for it, you cancel, and no one's going to stop talking to you, except maybe your instructor. Okay.
Right. Love it.
Bitch, go work out on your own. Okay.
Right.
Behavior control. Number 1, regulate individuals' physical reality. 2, dictate where, how, and with whom the member lives and associates with or isolates.
That should be number 1 on the list, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they're in level of importance.
Oh, okay. Got it.
When, how, and with whom the members had sex. Controlling types of clothing and hairstyles. Regulating diet, food and drink, hunger and or fasting. Manipulation and deprivation of sleep. That's a huge one.
Huge.
Because people do that on purpose to weaken your resolve.
Mind.
Yeah.
Right here.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Financial exploitation, manipulation, or dependence. Finances, you know. Okay. Restrict leisure, entertainment, and vacation time. Major time spent with group indoctrination and rituals and or self-indoctrination, including the internet. So, you know, perhaps like you have to study this like all day, every day, or a certain number of hours, whatever. Mm-hmm. Permission required for major decisions. Like if you have to go to your local leader of whatever your group is, or the leader themselves, to get permission for just about anything. I mean, that's, whew. Okay. Thoughts, feelings, and activities of self and others reported to superiors. So this is like having a culture where you have to rat somebody out if you see them not going with the rules. Rewards and punishments used to modify behaviors, both positive and negative. Discourage individualism, encourage groupthink. Impose rigid rules and regulations. Punish disobedience by beating, torture, burning, cutting, rape, or tattooing or branding. Threaten harm to family and friends. Force individuals to rape or be raped. Instill dependency and obedience. And the last one is encourage and engage in corporal punishment.
Sounds like some of my like friendships or relationships I've been in.
Yeah.
I don't mean to make a joke about it, but I did once date a narcissist that I didn't know was a narcissist till after the fact, because I had never dealt with one. And literally out of those 19, he had like 14 of those.
Wow. Well, yeah.
That's
and then we're talking
crazy.
about like control. So like when people do the like multiple
Control.
things of those, they're trying to control you.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to information control. So it looks like there's 6. So 1 is deception. So that would be deliberately withholding information, distorting information to make it more acceptable, systematically lying to the cult member. Number 2, minimize or discourage access to non-cult sources of information, including internet, TV, radio, books, articles, newspapers, magazines, and other media. Critical information, former members, keep members busy so they don't have time to think and investigate, and control through cell phone with texting, calls, internet tracking. And, you know, I gotta say, I see this a lot in these high control groups. They don't want you talking to people who left. And that's a big creeper, because why can't you just like know the information? And I was also in a group where they said not to read materials that were anti that group. And it's like, well, why can't you just allow people to have all the information that should be a sign of like, what are you scared of, you know?
Exactly.
Compartmentalize information into outsider versus inside doctrines. Okay, that's a big one. So that would be ensure that information is not freely accessible, control information at different levels and missions within the group, allow only leadership to decide who needs to know what and when. Number 4, encourage spying on other members, such as imposing a buddy system to monitor and control members, report deviant thoughts, feelings, and actions to leadership, ensure that the individual behavior is monitored by the group. Number 5, extensive use of cult-generated information and propaganda, including newsletters, magazines, journals, audio tapes, videotapes, YouTube, movies, and other media, and also misquoting statements or using them out of context from the non-cult source. Last one, unethical use of confession. Information about sins used to disrupt and or dissolve identity boundaries, withholding forgiveness or absolution, and manipulation of memory, possible false memories. In the vow, I just got to say this, like, it was not a religion, but it was the cult leader in that situation. Well, actually, this is a big one in Scientology, too. Like, you're supposed to confess things, and then it's kept and written down to be used against you later if you don't stay in line.
Yeah, it's called blackmail.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so anyone that's listening right now, honestly, if you're having access to our podcast and if any of these are coming up, just know this is a red flag.
Yeah.
You know, be aware, you know, the stuff that Barbara is reading off to you also is not just, you know, to listen to, but be aware this can be, you know, like she said, not just for religion purposes, any kind of cult. You know?
Yes, and Demetra, they say that like an abusive relationship or, you know, where one person is a narcissist, things like that, that is a cult of two people.
That's why I'm bringing it up right now, because even in our industry of doing hair, we now are required to take a domestic violence class, right? So, and we're supposed to be aware, right, and pay attention and so forth. But again, a cult, like Barbara just said, could be of two people as well. And if you're in a relationship, these are all red flags of someone trying to control the other person and for whatever, therefore, reason. So please take this part very seriously if you're listening to it. And if you need help, reach out to us. We would make sure that you will be safe. I just wanted to kind of put that out there because this is real. This is not, you know, like a joke. We're not making fun of anything here. This is legit.
And also, I think, you know, even if you feel like your partner is not abusive to you per se, if you can tell that they're very controlling, but you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, get you guys into therapy and like talk about like, why do you need to control this about me or that about me?
Right.
Like, what are you afraid of?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay, on to the next one, thought control. Number 1, require members to internalize the group's doctrine as truth, adopting the group's map of reality as reality, instill black and white thinking. That's a big one because life is very, very, very gray, and it took me a long time to realize it. Yeah. Decide between good versus evil, organize people into us versus them, insiders versus outsiders. And I've seen that a lot. The us versus them thing is kind of dangerous. Also, decide between good and evil. You know what's interesting to me? I was, as you know, I'm really interested in serial killers.
Me too.
And there was a documentary that I was just, it was so good. I had to watch it like 3 times.
Did you watch it? The one on Samuel Little?
No.
Oh, I watched it last night. Really quick, not to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Do you know he was the most prolific serial killer ever?
No.
He murdered 93 women.
That they know of.
And the other statistic, which is really crazy, that most people, if you watch like Barbara and our serial killers, they're mainly white males. He was a black man.
Oh.
Black. They're just not known to be serial killers, you know.
Yeah.
Usually it's the Caucasian. So, yeah. And his started back in 1960. He just passed away, I believe, like 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I just watched that documentary. It was insane. You need to check it out.
All right.
All right, sorry. Go ahead.
There was somebody that had been caught, and they knew, and they had admitted to things like they had killed somebody. Or I'm sorry, multiple people. And the specific documentary was about multiple personality disorder.
Okay.
And so the woman that it's really about is kind of a pioneer of that, and people really disregarded her and thought she was crazy, and also like pretty misogynistic people around. And she was like one of the only women doing some of this work, but she was extremely convinced of certain people having multiple personality. So this guy would like kind of flip-flop, and he'd go back to like, oh no, I didn't do that. But he wasn't lying, because that was a different like fragment of his, a different personality
Right.
that did that. And then other people just assume like, oh, well, you're just lying.
Right. You're making up this person to, not be accountable for.
Right. And she was saying that because of so many little things, she could tell that he was not making it up. Anyway, long story short, she was on the news a lot, and she was controversial, and a person on like a newscaster was talking to her and said, so don't you think this guy is evil? And she's like, well, I'm a scientist. Like the opposite of evil is like righteous. So like, it's not about.
Love that. She's right.
And it's true, because also it's interesting when you study people and how they get to be that way, to kill people or do, some of these really gross things. Like there's almost always something that happened to them. And like, by no means does that excuse it.
Right.
But,
it's not okay.
Life is very messy. And like, they don't belong out in public if they do those things. But
right.
I don't know. It's not a matter of like good or evil.
It's not, because the biggest hypocrites I know are the most so-called religious and hide behind their God or whatever it is that I'm telling you, some of the biggest liars.
Oh, in the thought control category, number 2, change person's name and identity. Okay, now I know that sounds weird. There's a lot of different scenarios where people give you a different name.
Yeah.
And that is a control thing, unless you're coming up with it on your own. Number 3, use of loaded language and cliches which constrict knowledge, stop critical thoughts, and reduce complexities into platitudinous buzzwords. Just silly phrases like, oh, it is what it is, or like, I'm not meant to understand everything, or something. Number 4, encourage only good and proper thoughts. Number 5, hypnotic techniques are used to alter mental states, undermine critical thinking, and even to age regress the member. 6, memories are manipulated and false memories are created. 7, teaching thought-stopping techniques which shut down reality testing by stopping negative thoughts and allowing only positive thoughts, including denial, rationalization, justification, wishful thinking, chanting, meditating, praying, speaking in tongues, singing, or humming. Number 8, rejection of rational analysis, critical thinking, constructive criticism. 9, forbid critical questions about the leader, doctrine, or policy. Like, you're not allowed to ask questions. 10, labeling alternative belief systems as illegitimate, evil, or not useful. And instilling a new map of reality. And then I'm coming down on it, guys. It's just so interesting to me. Okay, so last one from the BITE model, the E, emotional control. So as you can imagine, this one's kind of big. Okay, number 1, manipulate and narrow the range of feelings. Some emotions and or needs are deemed as evil, wrong, or selfish. Teach emotions to block feelings of homesickness, anger, doubt. 3, make the person feel that problems are always their own fault, never the leader's or the group's fault. 4, promote feelings of guilt or unworthiness, such as identity guilt, you're not living up to your potential, your family is deficient, your past is suspect, your affiliations are unwise, your thoughts, feelings, actions are irrelevant or selfish. Social guilt, historical guilt. Number 5, instill fear, such as the fear of thinking independently, the outside world, enemies, losing one's salvation, leaving or being shunned by the group, others' disapproval. Number 6, extremes of emotional highs and lows, love bombing and praise one moment, and then declaring you're a horrible sinner. Number 7, ritualistic and sometimes public confession of sins. 8, phobia indoctrination, including irrational fears about leaving the group or questioning the leader's authority. One of those, and it's broken down into no happiness or fulfillment is possible outside the group. There's terrible consequences if you leave, such as hell, demon possession, incurable diseases, accidents, suicide, insanity, 10,000 reincarnations, etc. Shunning of those who leave, fear of being rejected by friends and family, never a legitimate reason to leave. Those who leave are weak, undisciplined, unspiritual, worldly, brainwashed by family or counselor, or seduced by money, sex, or rock and roll. And lastly, threats.
Did you just say rock and roll?
Yeah. I think that's like an expression.
Yeah.
E, threats of harm to ex-member and family. So basically, like your safety is threatened, or like if you leave, we're going to hurt your family, or
yeah.
So yeah, the more ticks, the more dangerous.
Wow. But you know what's kind of scary about this list?
What?
Holy shit! I know a lot of people that do a lot of that stuff on the regular basis.
Yeah.
Just in their everyday life.
Yeah.
I meant it when I said like friendships or relationships or people are very manipulative, and I think sometimes they just don't know that they're doing it.
That's true.
You know, I mean,
well, some people, I think a lot of cult leaders legitimately look at the playbook and they create their own version of all these things, and it's true.
But it's almost like outsider looking in, watching some of these documentaries that I have been watching. It's almost like, how did you not see this was happening, though? I guess, like we said earlier, I think if you're older and it happens to you, I guess it's more questionable. But if you're raised and brought up, you don't know any different. That's like with any culture, because it's a culture, not necessarily considered like a cult to them. This is just how you're raised, right?
Well,
so
the people that study these things say the people, like, and cult leaders know this, they target people who are more vulnerable, and that would be like if there's a big change in your life. So a lot of times college age kids are targeted, or like if someone in your family died and you're like grieving, you know, like just major things, or like say you get
people know when you're like down and out on your luck per se, or you're not in your you're just at that more vulnerable state. People sense it and they will
take advantage.
Sadly but true. Wow.
It reminds me of once I went to Paris, and this is before smartphones, and so I had a map of Paris, and I was walking all over the place. But I knew, like, it is a big mistake. You put a target on your back if you're on the street and you're looking at a map. So I would always, like, when I was about to leave somewhere, whether it was a restaurant or a museum or whatever, I would go in the washroom, and in the stall, I would look at the map and where I'm going.
I love that. Good for you. That is so smart.
You know what? And it worked. I was there for like a week. Only on one occasion, I got turned around and I was like, wait a minute, did I read that right? And I was like halfway across a bridge, and I thought, dang it, I gotta get my map out. I have to look. Yeah. And so I did, but I knew, like, I looked like a fool. Or, you know, someone who's
as long as you weren't being manipulated by someone that walked up to you and was like, oh, let me help you.
Let me tell you, it wasn't even that long because I was like, well, I'll just whip it out, look at the couple of streets where I'm at right now, and I'll know. I did that, put it back in my bag. First thing that happens, a gypsy comes up and says, oh, you dropped this ring.
Ah, wow.
And I wasn't even mad because I was like, I already know. I'm from out of town. She's speaking English to me. She's got me like totally pegged. And I was like,
You weren't missing your wallet or your passport or anything, were you, after that?
No, I was like...
Oh, okay, thank goodness.
I was like, hey, girl. And they, like, held on to everything I owned.
Right.
And I was
like, hey, girl.
And I was like... I was actually a little bit happy. I was like, oh, my God, that's my first gypsy.
You're my first gypsy. I love it.
But you know what she did? Like, she put her hand out and was like, oh, you dropped this. And because she did that, like, without even thinking, I opened my hand. And then I'm like, what the hell did I just do? I took the ring. So anyway, I was like, no. And I'm trying to give it back. Like,
even if you are smart and you know this is what I'm saying.
It's a reaction.
It's just our reaction. You're caught off guard, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. That's why I think sometimes I wonder, and like I said, I watch documentaries, like, how were they getting manipulated into this? Because when you're in that moment, it doesn't seem like manipulation. It doesn't seem like someone's trying to rob you or someone's trying. You are kind of thrown off. No matter, I don't care how on top of it you are, you still are taken back.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. And then you start thinking, you're like, oh, shit, I shouldn't have done that. Or,
because it's like really awful to live your whole life. Like, what is that person trying to do to me? What is this person trying to do? So it's like, it's almost
you want
unhealthy.
to have faith in humanity and hope that people are, have good intentions. However, it's just sad that it's not the case.
Yeah. Well, just to follow through on my story.
Yeah.
Of course, I was trying to give it back to her. And she wouldn't take it. She would, like, step back one and, like, put her hands down. Like, she wouldn't take it back. And she's like, well, even if it's not yours, do you want to just give me some money and I'll let you have it? And I was like, no, thanks. And it looked like a gold wedding band or something. And I don't know, it was very odd. But
that's weird.
You know what I did, though? I set it on the ground, like, just, like, gently. I bent down and put on the cement in front of her. And I was like, no, thanks. And I walked away. But this is because I knew. I'm getting my map out. Somebody's going to come up to me. Right. And they sure did. They sure did.
Yeah.
Anyhow, now you have a smartphone, so just an analogy there.
Yep. I like it, though.
Anyhow, gosh, I've been going on and on and on.
No, that's okay.
We're definitely going to have to go back to this topic later.
Yes.
But, you guys, you can even Google it. I'll put a link in the show notes. But Stephen Hassan's bite model, it is so interesting. Any organization you're part of, or even a relationship that you feel like is like rolling, it's, I think it's very powerful to understand exactly what people are trying to do, whether or not it's intentional, Right.
It's a good checklist either way. Check it out.
Yeah.
It's a reference. Nice little reference.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Thank you for all that information, Barbara. I mean, that's good shit.
Thank you for listening. And if anybody from Scientology comes up to you, please run. Anyway, that's it.
Oh, Lordy.
Or that Mr. Man of God, what is, I can't remember what that is. Dancing with the Devil thing.
Oh, that pastor, what's his name?
I have no idea. I can't remember.
I don't even know. I just watched it last night, too. I don't even remember already. I'm already like,
Well, his face is like in my mind as like, really? Really?
You can't get, very distinguished look. Yeah. At least you'll know him if he walks up to you.
Yeah. Beware.
Right? Beware.
He needs some help. All right.
All right, ladies. To be continued.
Talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.